Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the CX Goalkeeper Podcast. Today I'm really thrilled because I'm Ben Phillips together with me. Hi Ben, how are you?
Hello, Greg. I'm all good. Yeah, this is long overdue, so I'm really happy to be talking to you today. So great to be here.
Super keen. Thank you very much. We are following you. We are reading what you are sharing. We are seeing you at conferences. We are listening carefully to what you are sharing, and therefore super keen to kick off today's discussion. B2B or B2C, time to level up in customer experience. Before we deep dive into this topic and we kick off this game, Ben, could you please introduce yourself?
Yes, so I'm Ben Phillips. I'm a career CX professional. I've been working in this industry probably about nearly 20 years now. Started out in a mystery shopping firm all those years ago, and then worked my way through some of the big market research firms, then some client-side roles. I worked for Santander for just over a year as CX manager. I was global head of CX at Nielsen, and my last role was head of a customer experience practice with Fujitsu. So a broad range of experience across B2C, B2B, and different types of industries as well. And now I work very closely with organizations, really trying to evangelize, educate, and just share my thoughts and opinions, as you well know, Greg, on social media.
But I really like that, and I want to say that publicly. I like people that don't always follow the flow and they state everything always the same as the others, and they always say, yes, I agree with you, and therefore there is also yes, but also another idea, another mindset, and therefore super keen. For the people listening to this podcast, behind you we see some guitars. We know that you are very active also in sport. Therefore, keen to ask this question: which are the values that guide your professional career, and how can you integrate sports, playing music, and so on?
Oh, wow. Well, interestingly, I guess both music and sports require quite a degree of dedication and not giving up. Now, I know that sounds very cliche, but for example, the element of sports that I'm really interested in is weightlifting. So I do a lot of weightlifting. And there's a lot of parallels there with business, right? In weightlifting, you have a lot of personal goals, a lot of objectives, a vision for what you want to be, both aesthetically, but also mentally as well, because, you know, that type of exercise is really great for mental conditioning. But there's a lot of target work in there. For example, can I lift the next heaviest weight? What would I have to do to get there? And there's a tipping point you reach in lifting where it's almost mind over matter. You know, you walk into the gym and you know you're going to try and lift heavy that day, but sometimes you can't because your brain is the thing that's affecting it, not your body. So there's a whole lot of things like that come with the parallels to business. With music, I guess it's creativity. It's a form of art. I like complex melodic patterns, and I also like to unpick complexity in business issues. So there's a parallel there as well, probably. But, you know, all of this stuff outside of work is really healthy. You know, it's something else to do with your creativity and with your energy. And then, of course, when you've taken that natural break, you can then come back to your business challenges and business problems and treat them with new energy and enthusiasm. So, yeah, that's how I use those.
I think this, and allow me to say hobbies, because we know that you are really working and you are in business, but I think these are two great hobbies that you are sharing. One giving you vision, clarity, mental clarity, focusing on achieving your goals, and then on the other side, curiosity, understanding music, and handling all the complexity, because if you want to get better, then it gets really, really complex.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, that's right.
Let's kick off this game, Ben. Thank you very much. Now we know you a bit better. Today's top player, Ben Phillips, and now B2B or B2C, time to level up in CX. We start with B2B. And B2B, the landscape evolved over the last few years, and it's how evolved it. And what's your definition of excellence today?
Well, this is interesting. I hadn't really thought about this before I saw your questions, so it's given me a chance to pause and reflect. But actually, I didn't enter B2B by accident. I more or less went there through choice. I was hired into Fujitsu by a talent acquisition part of their business. And when I heard what they were trying to achieve, which was much more focus on client relationships, I thought, well, that kind of sounds like B2C CX management, right? What's so different, right? It should be pretty easy to transition from one to the other. How wrong could I have been? I would advise this to anybody thinking about B2B. it is a whole world of customer experience practice, which really is in and of itself. Yes, of course, there are parallels, but there are plenty of differences. And probably the simplest way of explaining this to you is in B2C, as a CX leader, CX manager, CX professional, you're probably thinking about and dealing with lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of microtransactions everywhere, okay, across your web, across your mobile, across your contact center, across your retail. In B2B, very often you are dealing with one single relationship, which is responsible for multi-million dollar, pound, euros worth of business. One single stakeholder who might give you one piece of feedback every year. And you have a vastly complicated contract to manage that delivers those services. Now, those services obviously reach the customer somewhere down the line. So really the hop is B2B to C, not just B2B. So you still have to think customer, end user, consumer, but there's a whole level in between, a vastly complex layer in between, where you might be enabling services for that provider to give customer excellence to the customer somewhere down the end of the line. So the words we use in B2B CX management are account, client, key stakeholder. We're thinking of individuals, we're thinking of these big, very important, high value relationships. And your question was, how do you achieve excellence? I think the simplest way of describing it is that in a B2B CX management situation, you are trying to enable that client to provide the best possible customer experience that they can to their customers. And so you are partly responsible for that end service delivery, but it is your job to ensure that you provide the best service, tools, IT provision, services, consulting, whatever your game may be, to that customer, so that they can then in turn provide excellence to their customers. I hope that's making sense, Greg, to you, the way I try and explain it, but I try and keep it as simple as I can.
Yes, I start understanding what you're saying, and I think we can now double click on some information that you share with us. But first of all, I take as a compliment that you said this question helped me to reflect. It means then it was well prepared, and from you, it's a great compliment that I take.
Yeah.
You shared that you spoke about account, stakeholders, and so on. And basically, the reality is also the sales cycles for B2B are different. You sell something, and then you have a 2, 3, 5 years contract. Right. You need to manage the contract. At some point in time, the same one that 5 years bought from you, or somebody different from the same company, will buy from you again. And I think what we often feel, because we are in working in businesses, is as a customer, me buying something at the shop or something like that, I expect speed, I expect personalization, I want a specific value. And what I would like to understand is how are changing the B2B buyer expectation in this field, thinking about also all the technological stack that we could leverage and use.
Yeah, and this is really important. So back at Fujitsu, to simplify the customer journey in B2B, we tried to identify, thinking of maybe those key moments of truth. You remember that whole Jan Carlson thing with Southwest Airlines in the 70s and 80s? What are the moments of truth in the customer experience? Okay, well, there must be a parallel in B2B, right? Well, there is. As you have rightly said, there's a buying stage and a renewal stage. But actually, we boiled it down to 4 key moments that matter, we called it. And that's the pre-sales, the onboarding, the delivery, the renewal, and the exit. So there are 4 key points in the B2B CX journey, which we identified as the most important, the ones where you can really make a key impression. And you're then setting the customer's expectation. So anything past that point is either going to fall below their expectation or rise above their expectation. Now, we can't be unrealistic and think that everything we do is better than expected. Sometimes we dip below, sometimes we rise above. So we had this nice graphic in Fujitsu where we showed these 4 key points, and the customer journey experience might rise above and below that sort of level of expectation. And we simplified the function of CX to really say, well, when you fall below, then you're in situation recovery mode. So what you must do is diagnose and triage the customer problem and then find the fix. When you're sitting above, then utilize and leverage that optimal position. That's the point where you can introduce new products and services. Perhaps have the conversation about contract extension. Your question was about renewal point. Introduce new innovation, because the door should be open really in those types of scenarios to have those very rich revenue leading conversation with your customers. So I think the criticality of the B2B customer journey is when things go wrong, it goes wrong big at a level probably more than you might see with a single customer. Multi-million dollars worth of revenue are at risk. When things go well, again, that's a really high value opportunity. Multi-million dollars worth of revenue may be available for discussion. So the kind of seriousness of the impact of the customer journey in B2B is really, really important. So again, I hope that sort of makes sense as to how we think about, the following that journey through, and what are the really most important touch points along the B2B customer journey typically.
Yes, let's double click on that, because do you have some example that you can share from Fujitsu or from other companies where you say they are really best in class and they can do and they can overachieve? And we all agree, in a relationship, also familiar relationship, it can be not only highs, but you have also lows, and you need then to, as you said, recover them and get back on track. But basically, do you have some example that you can share? Because I know that you do CX. It's not that you speak about CX.
Yeah. Well, I can't reveal any particular customer situations or any IP or anything like that. But I would say that let's maybe take an example of each. In a situation where the service was not as optimal as it should have been, let's just say, for a big European customer, then a colleague and I traveled specifically to that contact center team's location and spent 2 days workshopping through business scenarios with that entire team. Now, the reason that worked was because, again, unlike I'm always going to try and draw parallels to B2C here, Greg, to help us understand why B2B is different. In a B2C situation, there might have been one agent dealing with one customer. In a B2B situation, that's 30 agents dealing with one account and multiple different touch points through to the relationship. So actually you have a vastly more complex picture. So the value of going on site and workshopping with these colleagues was to, bring them all in the room. Just put your tools down for just a couple minutes, right? The job can happen if you just spend some time with us, but just come talk to us. We sat together and we triaged and diagnosed some of those business problems. Now, the first few hours of that is usually therapy, right? How people are feeling, what's going wrong. We had someone was in tears, we had all of that. Right? This is business reality for you folks, in case you're wondering. This is what happens. Then you come out of that sort of like therapy stage. I'm sorry to use medical references, but you then go into surgery, right? I don't know why I'm using these references. It seems to work. But you then go into surgery. Right, okay, so how do we fix? What tools will we deploy? What knowledge are we going to bring into the room to help us fix this? But anyway, long story short, a couple of days later, we come out of all of that with a list of business recommendations and things that we would have to do. And we went straight to the top of that account relationship. Very well paid senior people that we call delivery executives, right? They are the one that's accountable for that business relationship with the customer. They then have to go back into the company and say, you know what? We're going to need some cash to fix some stuff. Or I'm going to need some resources to bring in here, and I'm going to need to do this stuff. That's not always easy, and it doesn't always happen. But that's an example of where we fix problems, right? An example of where we leveraged a good situation is, they're the easiest customers to get to refer you to someone else using that tradition of recommendation. That's what NPS is supposed to achieve, right? How do you recommend someone? Well, remember that NPS says, are you likely to? It doesn't ask, did you or will you? That's the flaw in the question. So what we try to do instead of saying, can we actually take some customers to recommend us to someone else? And so you can do that, right? And when you've got a really positive scenario working with someone. We'll also use them for positive marketing materials, great quotes, invite them along to sessions. We got some of our top customers and flew them to Japan and did these wonderful sort of innovation sessions with them a couple times a year. So look, you've got different examples of what you can do with customers who are in a bad place and you can do with customers in a good place in the B2B context. So again, I hope those examples make sense.
It makes sense, and I like the two options: one bad experience, one good experience,
Yeah.
and basically also what you shared about MPS. Then let's focus on that, and now let's ask to the audience. Please actually recommend Ben as a keynote speaker to your colleagues, and please actually recommend this podcast to your colleagues and friends to
Yes.
learn about CX.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. Go ahead and recommend.
Exactly. Let's plug in both of us. No, I
Yeah.
really like that. And you mentioned that you used a medical example with first the big issues and then the surgery. And
Yeah.
basically, I think that's something that we need as CX people, as humans in transformation, business transformation, digital transformation. Every leader needs that. We need some education. We need to learn that. And I know that you have view on education and training. From your
Yeah.
point of view, what kind of education and training is most needed nowadays?
Well, I've currently, since leaving Fujitsu, spent a couple of months evolving a proposition around this. And this is where I'm at right now with this, Greg. I don't think that for education and training on CX, customer centricity, CX transformation, call it what you will, I don't think we need another survey, another dashboard, another consulting engagement, another workshop, another journey map. I don't think we need any of those things because everyone has got all of those things already. There's probably nothing wrong with your CX strategy as a company, even if you're seeing bad results, right? There's probably nothing wrong with it. The problem is how people on the ground who are delivering the experience interpret the business strategy. Very often we'll see a business strategy and we think, well, it looks great. It could look beautiful, right? It could have been created in the best PowerPoint graphics package, communicated in a beautiful video and launched really well by leaders at your company kickoff. But how are you meant to execute? All those big words, profitability, sustainability, longevity, they're fantastic. They mean a lot, but actually they can mean very little to people doing the job. So my focus at the moment is how do we translate leadership strategy to on the ground activity? And I don't mean hypothetically, I don't mean arbitrarily, I mean actual things people will do in front of the customer, B2B or B2C, doesn't matter, that will then reverse back up and meet the strategy which everyone has been told they need to go and deliver. If you measure then using a CX metric like Net Promoter or effort or ease or SAT or whatever, you're switching now the psychology from chasing a number to actually delivering what the customer expects and maybe doesn't even expect, right? So you over exceed their expectation, which is another argument, but let's stick with that for a minute. That number you're chasing will look after itself, right? So your net promoter might improve then in the background if you're really focusing on these activities. It shouldn't be that the culture in a business is a set of PowerPoint decks, a training module, some arbitrary journey map that's stuck up on the wall, and you all went off site for 2 days to do it with sticky notes and drank coffee and ate donuts, right? All that stuff's great, it's nice, but is anyone actually using it? So my personal take at the moment on training and education is talking, engage in dialogue, different roles at different levels, talking one-to-one, instead of, and a lot of companies do this, big webcasts, that's 1 to thousands. And actually it's not two-way. It's very often a webcast broadcast from the leader. But all it does is it say what I want. It doesn't listen to, well, okay, you want that, but we can't do that because there are some things blocking us and we need you to unblock that for us. The dialogue must be opened up within an organization, and that takes away hierarchy, right? That means you stop being the CEO for a minute and stop being the person on the front line. You're going to talk one-to-one and you're going to have a rich dialogue about what you want and how you can deliver it and what the challenges are in between. So that's my personal take on the education piece at the moment, Greg. It's much more talking, much more listening, and much more empowerment around the changes and the things that people can do, less of probably the traditional CX strategy management that we've seen.
I can confirm that what you're saying really works, because my experience, and I shared that several times when I started working in the transformation of operations contact center, the most important thing to learn was when at that time, the leader of the contact center said, okay, now Greg, come downstairs, stop writing PowerPoints and creating slides, come downstairs and listen to customer calls. And it was an incredible experience understanding what you can depict on a slide and try to find out to solve this issue and what are the real issues of the customer. I moved from A to B. I need to change my address, but please, I will. And all these very simple problems that need to be solved before trying to do big strategies. And at the end, what you're saying, it's extremely important. From the leadership comes the strategy, then it needs to go to the employees. The employees, I translate what you're saying with need to live the strategy and deliver that, and the customer needs to feel that. And I really like to connect the dots there and really learn that. And I think that's totally makes sense. Now, it means leadership should change heavily. It means they need to understand that the contact center agent, the nurse, the physician, because you used the example of medicine, should really speak with the leadership team, and the leadership team should approach them. What's your view? How can be possible in future?
Well, my approach to this is actually, podcasts are a really, really good way of engaging between leadership to colleagues. I mean, think about it, right? The average attention span right now among the Gen Z and millennial groups is about 10 minutes. You got them for about 10 minutes and then you lose them. And actually the decision-making time in terms of whether something is relevant to them is about 8 to 10 seconds. Why? Because of this. Everything on this is engineered towards 8 to 10 second attention grab, right? So TikTok, Snapchat, everything we scroll through feeds vertically and we stop when something we like interests us. So why not then leverage that? And that's all been designed deliberately by companies that have spent billions on understanding how that UX works. So leverage that format then. What's the right way that we can get a leadership team to convey a concept to someone working in a store? We'll do it in a short, punchy, I call it bite-sized CX, right? So do it in a bite-sized format, quick, punchy, in, out. Here's what you can do. Here are the things that you can try. You can do that in a conversation style format, record it, broadcast it, do it live, right? Have people on. A couple of things that does as well, Greg. It introduces authenticity. It's not scripted. The rules should be don't have your marketing team edit all the bad bits out. No, keep them, right? Make a few mistakes, get some stuff wrong. I think it shows transparency. So again, you'll notice I'm not saying colleague has to go on an internal training course. Forget that. We all do those internal training courses. They're horrible. You go tick, 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 watch the video, passed at 80%. Great, done it for this year. You didn't listen to a damn thing. Everybody knows everybody does that. Like, we try to cheat that system. You can't cheat the system where actually it only takes you 5-10 minutes to consume a great story, right? Or the culture or the flavor of what the leader is trying to convey to you. And by the way, Greg, this is upwards education as well, right? We're showing leadership teams how to engage better with the people on the front line by showing them a new way of communicating. And they themselves might go, we have to get on videos. Well, we have to talk to people. Yeah, you have to, like you gave with your example in the contact center, get out of the office, gemba walk the business, go talk to people. Right. And there's still a small percentage of senior leaders that like to do that. They should really be dedicating a part of their time to talk to other people in the business and do what they need to do. So that's my take on how we can sort of deliver that.
The only thing that I can say, Ben, thank you very much for your time. We are not done with this game. We are coming in the extra time, and in the last 3 minutes, I have 3 short questions for you. First of all, in 10 years from now, we are back on the CX Goalkeeper podcast. What we are discussing about?
Yeah, what are we discussing about? Hard to answer, right? If I'm honest, because, this question reminds me of the type of thing where you see a question at the start of the year that says, in 12 months' time, what are we going to be talking about? A lot of people say things like, fully integrated AI chatbots across all journey points and workflow. No, we're not, right? It's going to take years to evolve that sort of stuff. So I'll say what I hope we're going to be talking about in 10 years' time. Maybe that's better. I've got no idea what we will be talking about. I hope we're going to be talking about companies that have evolved their maturity to understand how to connect those dots. A bit like I've been describing. Leadership through to frontline, not silos, arbitrary business concepts, and a rush for the NPS score to try to see whether that proves it's all working. Even if you get a great score, it doesn't mean it's all working. This is what you've got to try and understand. So diagnose within the business, unpick, go into those departments you've never spoken to before, do more of that. I think that's more CX maturity and richness, which hopefully in 10 years' time we'll be able to talk again about.
Thank you. And if somebody wants to talk to you between this period from now and into 10 years, what's the best way to contact you?
You can come find me on LinkedIn. Very soon I'll be launching a business concept and you'll see more about that as it comes out. But LinkedIn for now is great contact. Great. Yeah. No problem.
Thank you. And now we are coming to the last question. Is Ben's golden nugget, it's something that we discussed or something new to leave to the audience with?
Yeah, just talk is work. Someone said that to me a long time ago when I was working back at Ipsos, talk is work. Just use that concept, right? Go talk to people, go explore, go find out what they're doing, go understand what the business challenges are. And if you're important enough, you should be able to take that off somewhere and go do something about it, spend some money on it, dedicate some time to thinking about solving that business problem. So talk is work, go talk.
Ben, thank you very much for your time. This discussion is coming to an end. Please stay with me. To the audience for today, it's everything. I hope that you'd enjoyed this discussion with Ben as much as I did. See you next time. Bye-bye.
See ya.